So I was thinking recently about a trend that I'm pretty sure I see happening, and I've seen happening. And it's, right, I'll just speak personally from my experience. It's people that I've known who, as they've gotten older, have become seemingly like more intolerant, more prejudiced, maybe some cases racist, but just in general, like their empathy, their compassion, their tolerance for people that may be suffering or at least claim to be suffering and are looking for some help or some solution, it seems to diminish over time. And I've always found that interesting. I could think of examples of people that I knew when they were younger, like in high school or at different times, who didn't seem to have that view. But now that they're older, maybe more middle-aged or older than that, they seem to have that view more. And I always wondered why that's the case, right? Like my simple answer was just like, well, I guess you get older and your mindset shifts and you just view things differently. It was, which is probably true, but it's also, there's no substance to that. Like why, right? To my point, why? What's the first principles thing that's happening here? So I have a hypothesis that I was thinking about, that maybe it's because most people aren't particularly happy with their lives. There's things either they feel like they haven't achieved, maybe there's some insecurity there, maybe they're in a bad relationship, maybe they don't like their job, maybe all those things, maybe other things like that. But in general, they haven't found a way to, as I would say it, like get clarity on what really matters to them and then live that life, right? Live an authentic life towards that. And that causes discomfort, that causes anger, it causes sadness, it causes fear, it causes frustration. In general, it just causes them to not be happy with their lives. And I think what that leads to, logically, it would seem, would be that if you're not happy with your life and you feel like, I don't think this thing's going well for me, I'm not getting the things I deserve or what I should be getting, or my life isn't the way it's supposed to be. If somebody else is saying that and they're starting to get people to listen and want to take action, right? So Black Lives Matter, and I'm not getting into the specifics of it and the politics of it, but I'm just saying, if there's a group that's saying like, hey, we're struggling here, something's bad's happening, our lives isn't what it's supposed to be, somebody needs to help and fix this. I think incorrectly, but logically, little l, many people look at that and say like, hey, fuck off. Like my life's not going the way it's supposed to be going. Like I'm not happy. Nobody's helping me. And this isn't new or revolutionary necessarily, right? I think people have had a sense of this, that people are disenfranchised, or people, a lot of middle-aged conservative white people are feeling like, hey, what about me? I have my problems too. And the response often is, well, racism is different. Prejudice is different in some way. It's not the same type of problem. It's a more systemic problem. It's more deep-rooted. It's a bigger problem. And we could debate that, right? Obviously, we could think about the math on that and what's worse or what's not. What I find interesting about this hypothesis, though, is that there's a couple things, right? A few things that I think are interesting about it. One, it's not magic. It's not a certain type of person, I think, that evolves or gets older and then starts to form these more intolerant views. I think it may be more wide scale. It's just for anybody who's not happy with their life, right? So that's interesting, right? It explains a little bit more of how it happens and why it happens. But I also think that understanding that, even if it is a little L logic behind it as to why they're intolerant, as to why they don't want to hear about somebody else's problems, as to why they don't want to help, as to why they get angry when other people are going out of their way to help. If you're trying to get to a solution, right, and they play some part in that, which likely they do because they're part of society, you need to understand that. You need to be able, as I say all the time, right, you need to be able, even if you don't agree with it, to empathize with it and understand it. Not to give somebody a pass, not to say that means they're right, not to say you agree with them, none of that, but so that you could take the most logical action to try and get to the outcome you want. And I think often we just consider those people as assholes. We consider those people as racists. We consider those people as, old-fashioned, whatever you want to call it. And sure, I'm sure some of that is true, but I would imagine that there is a good chunk of people who are just not happy with their lives. And if they're not happy, why should you be happy? And it's as simple as that, right? And if you really dissect that statement, there's a lot to be unpacked there, right? On the one hand, you look at it very superficially and say, like, what do you mean? Why should they be happy? Everybody should be happy if we have an opportunity to. And if there's something at a systemic level that's hurting people, we should fix it, right? That's just a moral thing to do. But at the same time, if I'm a person who's not happy, who's struggling, who feels like life just is not giving me what I thought it would give me, in whatever form that is, why? Why should you get it? Why, like, I only get one life. We all only get one life. We're worried about helping you. Why not help me? And I think the obvious, right? So again, point being, understand the logic there. I think the right response to that is there's truth to that, right? If you're not happy, we should strive for everybody to be happy, whatever that reason is. But the reason does matter. And I think for that individual, right, this hypothetical individual or individuals I keep speaking of who are frustrated and becoming intolerant because of that, I think it's that ability to look inward first and understand, well, why am I frustrated? Why am I not happy? Is it something that's in my control? Is it something I could change? Should I get in shape? Should I start exercising more? Should I read that book or read those books I always wanted to read? Should I change my job? Should I take that trip? Should I change my relationship stat? Whatever it is that you can control to find that happiness for you, that's your responsibility to do that. If somebody could help you along the way, great. If there's certain things you can't fix on your own, sure, then definitely get help in whatever form that is. But when you think about racism or any of the social topics that we could talk about, oftentimes it's somewhat out of their control to fix that problem. Not completely, right? Because you can go too far in the other extreme and say, well, there's nothing I can do, right? There's nothing I can do to improve myself. It's totally up to society fixing themselves. And that would be wrong too. But by and large, most of the problems that come with racism, a black person, as an example, can't fix on their own. They can't just make their lives better tomorrow. Whereas many people that I'm thinking about that look a lot more like me and around my age and those types of things, they can. It's hard. It's super fucking hard. It's painful. It's uncomfortable. It's difficult. It's all those things, for sure. So I get why the inclination would be, I can't fix this. I'm just angry and I don't want to hear about anybody else, but we can fix it. So I think the math doesn't check out on the logic that I got problems, you got problems, we all got problems. Why are yours more important than mine? It's not that they're more important than yours. It's at a very root level, the process or the mechanism or the approach to fixing it is different. In one case, it's more in your control. In another case, it's much more out of their control. And that's what should matter.